Hello and welcome back to my channel. Why yes, this is the most embarrassing shirt that I own, but it's also my only YA themed article of clothing. And it's not like Love, Simon is even a bad movie, I actually really like it, but could they have picked a poster design for the shirt that wasn't just a huge wrinkly picture of Nick Robinson's face? By the way, I know that this is my third YA themed video in a row, so to all my older relatives / friends of my mom who I know watch this channel, I apologize. Anyways, The Kissing Booth 1, Fellowship of the Booth. So anyone who knows me even a little bit knows that I have an intense relationship with the Netflix film The Kissing Booth. If you don't know, The Kissing Booth, based on the Wattpad story turned traditionally published YA novel of the same name by Beth Reekles, tells the story of Rochelle L. Evans, a high school junior who loves to play Dance Dance Mania with her best friend Lee. She also happens to have a big crush on Lee's bad boy older brother Noah. What does this have to do with a kissing booth? Not that much, actually. The kissing booth itself is kind of unimportant to the plot.
Kissing booth!
Just know that Elle and Lee decide to make a kissing booth for their high school fundraising carnival or whatever. Do I think it's a good movie? No. Not in the traditional sense, but I do think it's one of the funniest bad movies there is. And it's underrated as a so bad it's good movie. I usually see some people who love it completely unironically, and a lot of people who think it's the worst thing ever to exist and wonder how anyone could possibly like it. Largely men who critique it with a similar vitriol that you often see directed at other films aimed at young girls like Twilight, but I won't get into that. But ultimately I haven't encountered a lot of other people who enjoy it because it's bad. And it makes sense because The Kissing Booth is kind of an outlier in the world of so bad it's good films for a couple of reasons. For one, a lot of these bad Netflix teen films tend to be bad in a boring, low-effort, no-one-cared-about-this way. It's not very entertaining to watch cheap cash-grab films with no passion behind them. Passion and genuine effort are usually vital to a movie's so-bad-it's-good factor. On top of that, The Kissing Booth is a comedy. Comedies are typically not so bad they're good. It's funny to watch films try and fail at intense drama, but bad jokes are, by definition, not funny. But in The Kissing Booth, something remarkable happens. It's like the jokes are so bad and unfunny that they sort of circle back around to being funny.
Oh my god, I would totally have babies with Noah. One girl, one boy. But not at the same time, though.
Did you just put hands on me?
Easy Bake Oven is downstairs, bitch.
Why are you standing and talking instead of sitting and talking?
I was watching porn.
Oh. Can I watch?
Are these good jokes? No. But they're so bizarre and out of touch, it's like an alien wrote them, and that makes them funny. It's worth mentioning that this film is based on a Wattpad book written by a 15-year-old Welsh girl, and the film was written and directed by a 49-year-old man, so it feels a little out of touch with the American teenage experience. There are also a lot of stupid or poorly executed or strangely executed little details and moments in this film that are unintentionally funny. The way this film was set in Southern California, but mainly filmed in South Africa, so there's this surreal quality to it where, like, this beach doesn't look like any beach in California, or this school doesn't look like any school in California. Also, because it was shot in South Africa, a lot of the minor characters are played by South African actors, and sometimes they're really obviously struggling to maintain those American accents.
He's been going around telling all the guys not to ask you out for a while now.
But that is the only reason you're on the back of Noah Flynn's motorcycle, right?
The hilarious tonal dissonance of the opening montage with Elle's narration.
Dressed as a fireman for Halloween, Lee went as some weird bird. Found out that my mom was sick.
It's like, wore a goofy Halloween costume with my bestie, found out mom was in the hospital. How bad Joey King's hair looks throughout the entire movie. The part where Elle says she ran home, but her running looks like this.
As I ran home, I wondered if our kiss meant anything to Noah.
And there are so many iconic line deliveries in this movie. I'll just play you some of my favorites.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
Dude, touch my lady bum. Oh, you could be so sweet when you want to be.
I know.
That girl totally left.
I guess I'd also be pretty pissed if I was slumming it with my little brother Sloppy Seconds. Just get in the car, Al. Get in the car, Al!
But being my best friend doesn't give you the right to tell me who I can love.
Now, no matter how you feel about the quality of this film, it was something of a cultural moment upon its release. Netflix is not transparent when it comes to their numbers, but my impression at the time was that the response to The Kissing Booth was somewhat unprecedented. I remember reading specifically that the film had an unusually high rewatch factor. Like, not only did it have a ton of viewership, but a lot of viewers were coming back to watch it a second or third time. I have definitely contributed to that. And of course, with such an overwhelming response, a sequel was announced pretty soon after the release of the first film. The Kissing Booth 2. I was so excited. My sister and I dressed up more for the premiere of The Kissing Booth 2 than we did for Halloween or New Year's or any other holiday for the rest of the year. I was so hyped, but upon watching it, I was a little disappointed. To clarify, I didn't expect or even really want it to be good. I just wanted it to capture the same energy as the first, to be wrong in all the right ways like the first. And strangely enough, it didn't quite deliver on being bad enough to be enjoyable or good enough to be an improvement. It's disappointing because there are things in this film that genuinely work, or almost work, or manage to live up to the original. It's just not all there. But I think this film could have been improved with just a little bit of editing. So I am here to tell you how I, a 20-year-old who has attended 2/3 of a year of film school, would have improved The Kissing Booth 2. It's like I am the protagonist of a Wattpad story, and The Kissing Booth 2 is my bad boy. Yes, he has a lot of flaws, but I know I can fix him. So let's get into how I would tailor The Kissing Booth 2 into the perfect boyfriend. The Kissing Booth 2. 2 kissing, 2 booth. The Kissing Booth 2 follows Elle in her senior year of high school while her now boyfriend Noah has gone off to college at Harvard. Yeah, Harvard. Elle is spending a lot of time with her best friend Lee, but his girlfriend Rachel is starting to feel left out, so Lee is feeling the pressure to distance himself from Elle. Elle also decides to enter a Dance Dance Revolution competition, a Dance Dance Mania competition, to win some money for college, and of course her only option for a dance partner after Lee injures himself is super hot hunk boy Marco. On top of all of that, she's worried that Noah may be cheating on her. What's most disappointing to me about The Kissing Booth 2 is that, unlike the first film, there is some potential here for an unironically decent film. I wouldn't go so far as to say good, but decent. There are romantic moments that work, emotional beats that work, even comedy that kind of works just by nature of how absurd it is. But sadly, the film as a whole is misguided, mainly in the writing. One of the biggest and most pervasive problems with the film is the length. The Kissing Booth 2 is 2 hours and 11 minutes long. The first film is also longer than it has any business being, but at least it's under the 2-hour mark. There are a few big changes I would make to the film to reduce the runtime, the first one being cutting out the gay plot. I know this is a brutal one to start with, let me explain. The film attempts to have this gay love story subplot between these two side characters. This fails miserably. Here's why. For one thing, we don't know who either of these two characters are. They barely had any role in the first film. I'm honestly not even sure they were named in the first film. And we don't really learn any more about them in this film other than they're gay. So it's very jarring to have the film suddenly expect us to care about these two people without doing the work of developing them at all. Side note, I'm genuinely having trouble telling these two men apart. For another thing, up until this point, these films have not had subplots concerning the minor characters. These side characters have only been relevant in terms of their relation to the main characters' storylines. So to suddenly have this subplot completely independent of the main plot makes no sense. It breaks the established logic of the storytelling. And for another thing, this storyline takes itself weirdly seriously in a way that is out of sync with the tone of the rest of the film. Whenever side characters are involved normally, they're rarely, if ever, having these serious emotional moments. It makes their scenes in this film very awkward and, dare I say, cringe. It seems like the writers were just desperate to have gay characters so that they could say, look everybody, we have gay characters, which is, of course, a very stupid reason to include gay characters. Also, this completely retcons whatever little thing this darker-haired guy had going on with this other guy in the first film. Sorry, I don't know any of these people's names. My solution is to cut this out entirely. It adds nothing, affects nothing, you could cut it out and absolutely nothing about the story would change. Another issue that adds to the runtime is the storyline concerning Elle, Lee, and Lee's girlfriend Rachel. In the first film, Lee starts dating this girl named Rachel. She has absolutely no personality and really no function in the story. I assume she mostly exists to help assure the audience that Elle and Lee aren't interested in each other. Rachel has a pretty big role in the sequel, and this is a problem. I'm gonna be frank, no one likes or cares about Rachel. She has so little development as a person in the first and second films that it's impossible to really care about her role in the drama. And like I said, she has no personality, so we can't even understand why she and Lee are a good match. The films just tell us that they are. In the second film, Rachel starts to feel like a third wheel to best friends Elle and Lee, and tells Lee to tell Elle that he needs some space from her to spend more time with his girlfriend. Lee basically makes up some excuse to spend less time with Elle and lies to Rachel that he's actually cleared it up with Elle when he hasn't. This all culminates in Rachel blowing up at Elle and Elle and Rachel blowing up with Lee when they learn the truth. If you can't already tell, this is all pretty messy and convoluted, and it puts a lot of the emotional focus on Rachel when, like I said, she's really too underdeveloped to be a character we can identify with. So I think it would make a lot more sense if instead of Rachel feeling like the third wheel, Elle feels like the third wheel. In this version, there's nothing wrong with Rachel and Lee's relationship, but they're spending all their time together and Elle feels left out, especially with her boyfriend away at college. She's feeling very lonely. Maybe we can still have Lee kind of be the problem here. Maybe Elle keeps asking him to hang out, keeps telling him she needs him, and he keeps letting her down and doesn't ever let Rachel know that Elle is feeling left out. There's this whole contrived series of events in the film where Lee fakes an injury to get out of doing this Dance Dance Mania competition with Elle so that she has to do it with Marco instead. All because Lee wants to spend more time with Rachel. And that's so messy. It would make so much more sense if Lee, because he's been spending all his time with Rachel, just has some prior commitment with her, forcing Elle to ask Marco to do the competition with her. That seems a lot simpler. This could culminate in Elle and Rachel basically switching roles in the latter half of the film. Instead of, as is, how Rachel blows up at Elle at the Halloween dance, have Elle blow up at Rachel because she thinks this is Rachel's fault. Then later at Thanksgiving, Rachel is just hurt and confused until they both learn the truth that Lee has been the inconsiderate one. And Rachel could have a scene with Elle towards the end where she tells Elle that she never meant to make her feel excluded and she wants them all to be friends. In the film, even though Lee is revealed to have lied to Rachel, Elle still has to take some of the blame, like she has to agree to spend less time with Lee, which feels a little unfair. It's not the nice resolution with Rachel that I would have wanted. Also, in the film at Thanksgiving, Lee gets mad at Elle for applying to Harvard without telling him. They have this agreement that they're both going to go to Berkeley, and again, I think my version would make this conflict make more sense. In this version, Lee gets mad at Elle both for the Harvard thing and for kissing Marco, because she's cheating on his brother. But when Lee confronts her about this, she can be like, "You've been ignoring me all year, I needed my best friend and you weren't there for me." I think that would be better, more relatable drama than what we got. The next big problem with the film is the romantic plot, both of them. Elle starts to have doubts in her relationship with Noah in this film, not only because he's off at college across the country, but because she's very suspicious of his relationship with his female friend Chloe. They seem very close, and she finds one of Chloe's earrings under his bed. Sounds pretty incriminating, right? Yes. Yes, it is. In my opinion, the film never does an adequate job of explaining and justifying Noah and Chloe's closeness. Sure, Noah assures Elle that they're just friends, but we have stuff like this.
I think you're good for me. Tell me something I don't know.
That seems like it does cross some boundaries, and neither character ever really has to answer for these moments. It doesn't help that Chloe's explanation for how the earring ended up under Noah's bed is very weak.
When you were out of town for a football game, I sort of crashed at your place after getting into a fight with Jason, and the earring must have just fallen off then.
Why wouldn't you tell me that?
Okay, sure. I know that in the film she's supposed to be telling the truth, but this just sounds like a lie. It's a badly written explanation. So I have a whole new storyline to improve this situation. For one thing, I think we should see less of Noah and Chloe interacting. I think it should revolve more around suspicions on Elle's end. Like, put us in Elle's shoes, give Noah and Chloe a little more benefit of the doubt. This makes it all easier to explain away later. Also, I say we get rid of the earring thing altogether. Instead, I think the incriminating evidence Elle finds should be some texts between Chloe and Noah that sound very intense and emotional, maybe ending in Noah saying that he really cares about or even loves Chloe. And it's like, well, that looks pretty bad. To make matters worse, Noah is being very vague about their relationship whenever Elle asks, kind of like in the movie. He won't really defend himself that much, he just keeps reiterating that they're just friends. Now, in the actual film, Noah, for some reason, decides to bring Chloe home with him for Thanksgiving, and later he explains this by saying, "Oh, I wanted you to make friends with her, Elle."
They just wanted me there so that we could become friends.
Elle made clear to Noah that she felt insecure and jealous of Chloe, so this makes him look like a huge, inconsiderate idiot. I would change this by having Chloe be the one who decides to come visit them for Thanksgiving as a surprise. Like Noah in the film, her intentions are good, she wants to befriend Elle, but because she hasn't been in direct contact with Elle, she doesn't understand that this is not a good idea. And maybe at Thanksgiving, Elle gets mad at Noah because she assumes that he brought Chloe here, and they're already fighting about Marco, so Noah doesn't get a chance to explain. In the film, there's a scene where Elle has finally realized Noah is the one, and she runs to the airport to find him, only to find that he's left looking for her, and she has this little talk with Chloe where Chloe gives the terrible explanation for the earring. I would keep this going to the airport and finding Chloe scene, but instead of the earring thing, Chloe first explains that it was her idea to come to California, and she's sorry, she didn't know it would come off badly, but then reveals to Elle that she's a lesbian. And of course she's not interested in Noah, but she tells her he's been a great friend to her and has been supporting her as she's been in the coming out process, which was what those emotional texts were about. Now I know it's a little cliche to use the old romantic rival turns out to be gay so that they're automatically not a threat to the relationship, but given that this is the Kissing Booth franchise we're talking about, I think this is really the least of our worries in terms of problematic tropes. It's not even problematic, it's just kind of lazy, and I would argue it's less lazy than really anything that already exists in the real Kissing Booth 2, so. Plus, as we've already established, these movies are clearly desperate for some easy gay representation, so here you go, Kissing Booth writers! Anyways, I think that this plot point also would reflect well on Noah. I'll get into this more later, but I personally think that Noah Flynn lacks any romantic appeal. I know not everyone thinks that, but I do. He's a violent, misogynistic dummy who's possessive and unable to control his anger. No red flags there. And they basically strip him of all of those traits in the sequel, which is arguably worse. He's just like a big pile of bland mashed potatoes who seemingly emotionally cheats on his girlfriend. In my version, not only would we eliminate the emotional cheating part, but his friendship with Chloe emphasizes that he's actually a good, supportive guy. And maybe when he and Elle are reconciling, he can be like, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Chloe, but that wasn't my secret to tell." And Elle can be like, "Of course, I understand." And you're like, wow, he's kind of a woke king in this movie. The other big problem with romance in the Kissing Booth 2, and honestly the elephant in the room, is Marco. Marco is great. The problem is that he's actually too great. To explain my thoughts here, I have devised a mathematical equation for romance films of this type. Essentially, if you're going to have a love triangle with, say, the terms boy A and boy B, in this case Noah and Marco, In order for boy A to be endgame, to get the girl in the end, the total sum of the romantic moments with boy A must be greater than the sum of the romantic moments with boy B. By the way, I'm defining romantic moments as scenes Elle has with either boy that involve romantic interaction, whether it's explicitly non-platonic or more like flirting building up to romance. So for example, I'm not counting scenes where Elle and Noah are fighting or avoiding each other, or scenes with Marco that are just like exposition scenes or whatever, because the effect of those scenes is not romantic. Can you tell I haven't taken a math class since 2017? Anyways, unfortunately, in The Kissing Booth 2, the romantic moments with Marco outweigh the romantic moments with Noah. Let's break it down. For Noah, we have some very brief moments in the opening montage, this phone call, this video call, which is barely romantic because it ends with Elle suspecting that Noah is cheating on her, this Boston montage and related scenes, which also end in Elle suspecting Noah is cheating on her, and this final reunion scene at the gazebo. For Marco, we have the scene where he meets Elle, this whole flirty field day competition, this flirty Marco plays guitar scene, this flirty Dance Dance Mania contest scene, all of the Dance Dance Mania practice scenes, especially this one, this whole Santa Monica Pier sequence, the beach scene, this slow dancing scene, the moments with Marco in this montage, the actual competition scene, and the kissing booth scene with Marco. You'll notice that most of the time Elle spends with Marco is in these really romantic scenes with good, creative premises. They're the best parts of the film, in my opinion. While most of the time Elle spends with Noah is in scenes of her suspecting him of cheating over video call. It seems like this is a common misstep in these love triangle romance films, especially sequels where they introduce a new love interest. Like, I think Twilight New Moon and To All the Boys Too also kind of have this problem with Jacob and John Ambrose respectively. I guess an easy way to have conflict in your romance sequel is to introduce a romantic rival, and to make that rival both appealing and a realistic threat to the relationship, they have to have a good deal of screen time and chemistry with the lead, which of course can become problematic if this screen time and chemistry outweighs that of the lead with her OG endgame love interest. Another uncomfortable aspect of this issue is that these romantic rivals tend to be men of color. I assume that the writers and filmmakers and studios may want opportunities to add more diversity to the cast for the sequels, and they think, why not these new love interests? They're main characters, while unfortunately not realizing the implications of always having the white man triumph over the non-white romantic rival. But anyways, it's not just the scenes he's included in. Marco is also objectively a better and more likable person than Noah. As I mentioned earlier, Noah in the first film is violent, possessive, inconsiderate, and in this film he's basically just a blank slate. I think what appeals to certain people, especially young girls, is that he's a bad boy, he rides a motorcycle, and he and Elle do have this kind of adversarial relationship at first in the first film, which is a fun place for a romance to develop from. However, Marco and Elle also have a fun adversarial relationship at first, but without all of the uncontrollable anger and relationship red flags. So I think their romance works better anyways. Marco is also cool and talented. He actually shares Elle's interest in DDM. He plays guitar. Also, no offense to Jacob Elordi lovers, but I would argue that Marco is hotter than Noah, which is a plus. I've already laid out how Noah could come off as a better boyfriend in this movie with the whole Chloe storyline, but I honestly think that this could have been a much better movie if they had just let Elle end up with Marco. I know it's bold for a romance sequel, but why not? This is The Kissing Booth. Nobody cares. And for the record, I know that I'm not the only person who's team Marco. It seems like a lot of people got the impression that he was a better guy. Unfortunately, shortly after the release of The Kissing Booth 2, it was announced that The Kissing Booth 3 had been secretly filmed back-to-back with the second film, meaning that the filmmakers didn't have the chance to gauge the audience reaction to Marco. So even though the end of the second film implied that Marco is gonna stick around and maybe continue to pursue Elle, we're probably not going to see a big turnaround in the third film. Nevertheless, let me tell you how it could have gone down in The Kissing Booth 2. So for the purposes of this alternate ending, let's nix what we did with Noah and Chloe. Instead, we'll keep it as it is in the film, all vague and lacking a satisfactory explanation. But in this version, that's intentional. Noah does have feelings for Chloe, he is drifting apart from Elle, and meanwhile, Elle is realizing that Noah was always this possessive, controlling guy who didn't really take her feelings into consideration. Maybe she can have some contrasting scenes with Marco, where she'll encounter similar situations to ones she encountered in the first film with Noah, but Marco will react completely differently and make Elle realize that Noah was not a good boyfriend. For example, maybe another guy flirts with Elle or something, and instead of jumping on him and beating him to a bloody pulp, he just stands up for Elle and makes sure this guy isn't making her uncomfortable, and she's like, wow, I didn't know boyfriends were capable of responding to conflict in a healthy and nonviolent way. We don't have to necessarily make Noah a villain, but at least just demonstrate that he is not right for Elle. This movie, like a lot of teen romance films, has an obsession with the idea of the one.
But you're not the one. It's you, Noah. It's always been you.
Predestined soulmates, basically. And I get it, it's a teen romance movie, you want to give the impression that they'll be together forever, but honestly, a healthier thing to show to teenagers might be that actually you might not marry your first high school partner, and in fact it's perfectly okay and healthy to try out new things and not feel pressured to stay with someone you met when you were 16 for your entire life, especially when they display some abusive tendencies. A lot of people's justified criticism to the first film was that it had a toxic, abusive love interest. Having Elle leave Noah for Marco would be the perfect response to that criticism. Dump him, Elle. He's a violent baby who doesn't respect your boundaries and probably paid his way to get into Harvard. Just look at his family's house. Oh my god. Marco is hotter, he's more emotionally mature, he's not an entitled rich boy, he plays guitar. We would have had a much better movie had Elle chosen Marco. The Kissing Booth 3, Revenge of the Kiss. As I said, what's most disappointing about The Kissing Booth 2's failure is that there are parts that I genuinely like. Not only is the romance with Marco effective, but there are also moments where the filmmakers manage to recapture that lightning-in-a-bottle energy of the first film. The sequence introducing Marco, where Elle is watching a video of him working out and starts giving this absurdly passionate and long speech about how hot Marco is, not knowing that she's actually announcing this to the whole school over the PA system.
He convinced you, us together at the same time. Yeah, definitely.
And Lee is on this slapstick race through the school trying to find her and stop her, all while the other students are reacting to this. It's amazing. It actually feels very Bollywood to me. The tone and style here kind of remind me of early films by Karan Johar.
राहुल और अंजलि का फिर से झगड़ा हो गया राहुल और अंजलि का फिर से झगड़ा हो गया
राहुल अंजलि का झगड़ा राहुल और अंजलि का फिर से झगड़ा हो गया
What is his name again?
That stuff is really fun, and I wish there had been more of it. It also seems like the cast genuinely love making these movies. I know that to a certain extent, actors in films like this are often encouraged to play up the camaraderie and whatnot to promote the film, but I think there's more to it here. I mean, if you look at the actors from, say, 13 Reasons Why, when that show was airing, a lot of those actors would post, at most, one trailer for the new season and nothing else. And even when they do post about each other and their friendships, it's often almost completely divorced from the show itself. Whereas the cast of the Kissing Booth films, even the leads, seem to genuinely love this franchise and seem like they had a really good experience making them. And I think you can see that in the final product. This doesn't feel like a soulless cash grab that no one wanted to be involved with. Everyone seems passionate and happy to be there. That's nice to see in a movie like this. But I do think that with the changes I've laid out, this could have been a much better film. So hurry up and hire me, Netflix. I hope that The Kissing Booth 3 is a little more competent, but hey, I will not get my hopes up. How would you have changed The Kissing Booth 2 to be your ideal man? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, Easy Bake Oven is downstairs, bitch.